Ever wonder how pro urban sketchers make their work look so effortless? You know, the looseness, the use of color. It's almost like they know exactly what they're going to do before the pen even touches the paper. And that's because they're great at this one thing, and that's thumbnailing. We all know what thumbnails are. This thumbnail is probably the reason why you clicked on this video. But in the urban sketching world, thumbnailing refers to drawing small sketches really quickly. And there are two types I'm going to chat about. I know the grammar police are going to be on me for this one, but it's all good. The first type is small thumbnails, and you do this to figure out your composition. The second is medium thumbnails, to figure out your use of color. You know the phrase fail early and fail fast, right? This is exactly what thumbnailing will help you do, so you're not half an hour into a sketch that you completely hate. All right, let's go to the desk and take a look at the 5 reasons why you should be thumbnailing, especially if you're a beginner. For reason 1 and 2, we'll be looking at small thumbnails because these will decide your eventual composition. The first reason you should be sketching thumbnails, whether it's in situ or from a photo, is to understand the limitations of your page. In other words, you don't want to draw too big or too small. The sketchbook I'm using, for example, is more square than rectangular, so it only makes sense that my thumbnails would also be square. If yours is more rectangular, then obviously your thumbnail should be more rectangular. But I'm going to start off with just drawing little squares, and that's it. Maybe draw 2 or 3 of them, and you just do these to figure out where the elements land in your sketch. So you look at the photo, there's a building here, so I have to put the building. I like the little slant that it's on. I need to make sure the billboards fit. The building's a little bit too small and the billboard's a little bit too big. So let me readjust that. I'll bring it down a little bit. And just let me refine it a little bit here. And that's basically all you want to do. You want to get an idea of what fits. So that looks pretty good to me. The second reason you should be thumbnailing is to decide what makes the cut. How many times have you been a few minutes into a sketch and realized you drew everything in the scene and it's all jumbled with no focal points? We'll do exactly the same thing what we're doing. This time, I'm going to start taking out things that I don't feel belongs there. So if you look at the photo, I think the building belongs there. The billboards obviously belong there. I think they add so much of a story. What I don't think belongs there are these windows that I did in the previous one. So I want to see what that looks like. Make it a little bit more structured. I'll add this little plant pot that was here. So in this phase, I'm just deciding what I want in the sketch. And I'm pretty happy with what I came up with right here. It's not as busy. Everything kind of fits within the frame quite comfortably. And while I'm doing the 2 reasons separately, these are things I actually do in one go. As I draw these thumbnails, each one's a little bit different because I'm just constantly changing what's in the sketch and what's not. I'm changing the proportions. I'm trying to see what works and what doesn't work. Now we're moving on to medium thumbnails to deal with the colors. And that's the third reason, to quickly test your color schemes. You can do this quickly, so no need to waste time making everything perfect. Just as long as you nail the basic shapes, you're good. I'm gonna make my thumbnails a little bit bigger, but not too big. I just kind of want what's in the frame, and that's it. I'm gonna do 2 of these because it'll allow me to quickly test. And like I said, as long as you have the basic shape, you're good. This doesn't need to be anything crazy. This is not your final piece. It just allows you to understand what your final piece can look like. So for this one, I'm gonna do a gray color scheme for the building. Even though the building is a tannish, brownish color in the sketch, I figured I'll start off with gray and then we'll take it from there. And I'll bring back those tan colors in here also. So as you can see, this is way too tan. I tried to start off with the gray here, but then I went in with the tan color to make it a little bit more realistic. But I find it really clashes with the billboard. And then the building also clashes with the building in the background. So let's pull back that a little bit and quickly change up our color scheme. And this is the brilliance of thumbnailing. You can do this on the fly. And I already think this is a much better relationship. You have the oranges and the tan colors, the warmer colors on top and some specks on the bottom. And then you have the predominantly gray colors on the bottom with some specks on top. So it gives the overall composition a nice little balance. So just to establish, I really liked the color scheme before where I had the oranges and the warmer tones on the top with some specks on the bottom. And then the cooler gray tones on the bottom with some specks on top. So I'll just recreate that really quickly. If you look at the photograph, you'll see that behind the House of Tea building and the billboards is another building. And I really did not like how the brown of the building looked compared to the billboard and the House of Tea building. And that brings me to the 4th reason you should be thumbnailing. And that is to quickly change the color of the elements in the scene. It works hand in hand with reason 3, and I usually do them at the same time. You don't need to do these in stages or steps. From the first thumbnail, you can start experimenting with colors, experimenting with size, experiment with elements, and just changing everything. So what I want to do is change the building in the back, just get rid of it completely and add the sky, because I think a blue will look great against the grays and the warm tones up here. I'm not sure how I feel about the blues over here. It just seems so flat. So I'm going to make it a little bit more dynamic for my next one. I'm going to have the blues radiate from behind the building and see what this looks like. I think that looks much better as the sky and a lot more dynamic, but let's add the other colors to see what we're left with. I really dig how this came out. I think it looks so much more dynamic. I really like how the blues radiate from behind the building and it's not as flat as the one on top. And the last reason you should be thumbnailing, especially in urban sketching, is actually the best one. Thumbnailing allows you to be more expressive and loose with your line work. You have to draw quickly, so there's no time for details, just time for impressions. And you can see it from my initial thumbnails. I started loose, then became a little bit more rigid, got a little more rigid, then went back a little bit more loose once I added detail. My first set of medium thumbnails were very loose actually, and a little bit messy, but then as I continued, they became a little bit more proportionate, a little bit more structured, and you have a true impression of the scene. So now you understand the 5 reasons why you should be thumbnailing and what it eventually leads you to. Getting good at thumbnailing just makes everything a little bit easier. You understand your proportion a little bit better. You're making your sketches the perfect size for the page. You're becoming looser, which also adds to the scene. The whole point of urban sketching is to capture the energy of the scene. And by drawing looser and more expressively, you can do that easier. Now I bet you're going to want to see how I draw and color this. But for that, you're going to have to wait because this was a tutorial video. And next week, I'll be releasing the sketch video. So stay tuned. So one of the hidden benefits of getting good at sketching thumbnails for both beginners and intermediates is that it really helps you find your style. We all start this journey because we saw an amazing artist. In my case, it was Albert Kiefer, aka House Sketcher. And we want to emulate their style. You know, that effortless sketch? And in trying to do so, you start to develop your own techniques. You see elements differently, you make different decisions. So while you may start off by simply copying, as you sketch and experiment more, you begin to add things, your own spin. And before you know it, you're completely different from your inspiration. Thumbnailing really speeds up that process by allowing you to experiment and adapt really quickly. There are a few other techniques I use in my urban sketches, such as photography and simplification. You can check those out now. Thanks for sticking around and make sure to subscribe if you're not.